Now conservatives are those that want to maintain tradition. And so conservatism has as its core the maintenance of tradition. Specifically, the king, the rights of nobles, and the church. Conservatives will resist and will oppose liberal ideas like human rights and equality for all persons. Conservatives will also often be from the landed classes, the noble class, or the aristocracy. And so they will not really favor the bourgeoisie and this new industrial capitalist class from the Industrial Revolution.
How did the industrialization of Europe affect conservatives and like the conservative outlook of tradition?
Well, conservatives are going to be resisting changes, and many conservatives will in fact denounce industrialization for the horrific conditions that it causes in cities. But the key thing is that industrialization is resulting in more people living in cities, more people are being exposed to ideas, more people demanding change. And so therefore, conservatives are going to have to deal with more demands for change from more people living in bad conditions in close proximity to one another in cities. And so therefore, industrialization will compound the demands for changes and therefore will compound the problems that conservatives face in resisting those demands for change. Okay, so conservatism, some specifics. At the Congress of Vienna in 1814 to 1815, at the end of the Napoleonic Wars, Napoleon is defeated. And so the leading states at the Congress of Vienna are going to want to restore Europe to how it was before the French Revolution. And so the Congress of Vienna is led by conservative statesmen, especially Metternich. Now, one of the principles that dominates the Congress of Vienna is the principle of legitimacy, which states that the legitimate leaders of Europe are those from royal families before Napoleon. So all those royal families that were deposed in the Napoleonic Wars, those nobles that were forced out, all of them will be restored to their positions as leader of, say, Saxony, or as the Duke of Savoy, or all of these leaders in Italy and the German states that Napoleon deposed, they will be restored to their positions. Even in France, where Napoleon seized power, he will be replaced by the legitimate leader from the old royal family. And so Louis XVIII will become the king. And Metternich is, who is he? He is the minister of Austria. He's the diplomat who represents Austria at the Congress of Vienna, and he's a conservative. He's resisting liberal ideas like rights and constitutions because they limit the power of the king, and therefore they limit the power of his government that he oversees. He's resistant to nationalist ideas, nationalism, because nationalism threatens the state he governs. Remember, Austria is a multi-ethnic, multinational state full of all sorts of different nationalities. And so if the ideas of nationalism spread, the Germans would want out and want to be part of Germany. The Hungarians would want their own country, right? The Slavs would want their countries. And so nationalism represents a threat to Austria and therefore to Metternich's rule. Alexander I is the leader of Russia. Alexander is a great Christian, and so he imagines a holy alliance in which the major powers will defend Christianity in Europe. The Concert of Europe is a series of congresses that meet after the Congress of Vienna to maintain cooperation amongst the major powers. To maintain, the goal of the concert of Europe is to maintain cooperation amongst the major powers.
Is Prussia included as a
Prussia, Austria, Russia, England, and France are the 5 big powers.
And France is kind of like reluctantly added, right?
Well, France initially is sort of on the outside, but very shortly thereafter they've got Louis XVIII restored to power, and the agreement is made that to sort of welcome France into the global community. The French are the ones that intervene in Spain and suppress the Spanish revolt against the French king down there, or against the Spanish king down there. Yeah.
You said Alexander wanted to protect Christianity. Like, what do you mean by like all denominations, like the Russian Orthodox and Catholicism?
Well, this is a good question. Alexander's sort of a big thinker. He sort of has these grand visions of creating European-wide peace and cooperation and sort of improving people's lives and protecting Christianity. So Alexander, he's very interesting because the other powers, including Metternich, are a bit skeptical about his ideas and aspirations. And he's not very concrete in what he seeks to do. But obviously, as a result of, say, the French Revolution, it was quite obvious there that Christianity was under siege because it was banned and ended in different phases of the revolution. And so he, of course, wants to prevent further revolutions like that, liberal revolutions that might, be anti-Christian from coming about. The principle of intervention is this principle that develops that suggests that that the major powers have the right to intervene when there's revolutions in small states that will threaten European stability. So Metternich claims that the major powers have the right to intervene in smaller states when there's revolutions against the legitimate leaders in those states. So, for example, the Austrians intervene in Naples when there's a revolution against the Naples prince. A liberal revolution there must be suppressed. And so the Austrians intervene there to restore that prince to power. The other example is the French intervening in Spain in the 1820s as well. Remember, our example from class was that during this period we've got the dam of conservative ideas enshrined in the governments of the era, holding back this torrent of ideas and demands for reforms. And these demands for reforms are liberalism and nationalism and socialism, which we'll now be looking at.